You're listening to Short History Shorts audio, where history speaks louder than images. Religion in Egypt's Old Kingdom wasn't merely a part of life, it was life. From roughly 2686 to 2181 BC, religion wasn't confined to temples or rituals. It saturated everything from the flooding of the Nile to the architecture of pyramids. The Old Kingdom was a time when the divine and human worlds intertwined with astounding precision. At the center stood the pharaoh, not just a ruler but a god-king. He was Horus in life, Osiris in death, and the axis around which the cosmic order, Ma'at, revolved. Ma'at, meaning truth, balance and harmony, was the principle that kept the heavens, earth and underworld in sync, and the pharaoh's primary duty was to uphold it. He wasn't just a figurehead, he was the bridge between the gods and the people. Temples in the Old Kingdom were not yet the colossal complexes of later periods. Instead, they were modest structures focused on housing the divine presence of specific gods. But the rituals performed inside, offerings of bread, beer, incense and meat, were cosmic duties. Every day, priests bathed statues, clothed them, fed them, and recited sacred hymns, essentially keeping the universe running. These daily rituals weren't symbolic. They were believed to feed the gods and ensure Egypt's survival. Priests functioned as divine caretakers and administrators, rotating in and out of service. High priests, often appointed from noble families, held vast power. Yet even they served under the divine authority of the pharaoh, who himself performed critical seasonal ceremonies, especially during agricultural festivals tied to the Nile's cycle. The most important deities in the Old Kingdom were not yet the pantheon of New Kingdom drama, but rather foundational forces. Ra, the sun god who travelled the sky by day and underworld by night. Osiris, the god of the dead who represented resurrection and eternal order. And Ptah, the creative god of Memphis, patron of craftsmen and builders. The concept of the afterlife was tightly woven into religious life. The Egyptians believed that every person had a Ka, vital life force, and Ba, personality or soul, which lived on after death if properly cared for. This required mummification, tombs and offerings. For elites this meant elaborate mastabas and eventually pyramids. For commoners, modest graves and household rituals sufficed. Tomb inscriptions and offering formulas ensured that the dead received spiritual sustenance. Funerary texts began to evolve in this period, including the earliest pyramid texts, magical spells carved into the walls of royal tombs, designed to guide the deceased king through the afterlife. These were not myths. They were roadmaps to eternity, carefully etched for divine navigation. Pyramids themselves were religious expressions, monuments that aligned with stars, solstices, and sacred geography. They were built not merely as tombs, but as resurrection machines, enabling the pharaoh to ascend to the heavens and join the eternal cycle of Ra. Meanwhile, ordinary Egyptians worshipped local gods and household deities. Amulets, charms, and small statues filled homes. Festivals tied to harvests or the inundation of the Nile involved music, dancing, and public processions. These were not separate from state religion, but rather mirrored its cosmic concerns on a local scale. Animal worship, though less prominent than in later periods, began to take shape. Bulls were associated with strength and fertility, while sacred animals like ibises and falcons symbolized gods like Thoth and Horus. Religious art depicted gods with human bodies and animal heads, not as literal beings but as symbolic representations of divine powers. The Old Kingdom laid the theological groundwork for all future dynasties. Its religious worldview, cosmic order, resurrection, divine kingship and ritual precision shaped not just temples and tombs, but how Egyptians understood time, nature and death. As the Old Kingdom declined and central authority faltered, religious practices began to decentralize. Provincial nobles built their own tombs and adopted rituals once reserved for royalty, foreshadowing the democratization of the afterlife in later centuries. Yet the spiritual DNA of Egypt remained unchanged, a belief in eternal cycles, in divine balance, and in a pharaoh whose life and death held the keys to cosmic harmony.